Hi, folks. So it's been a while since I've done a live stream, and excuse me here, because I'm just multitasking. So I'm actually going to do some washing up and see I'm multitasking. Comment a bit more when people come online. Thank you. So as always, feel free to ask questions. I'll try and give some feedback. I'm just multitasking. I'm actually going to do some dishes, believe it or not. Um, but I think I can still talk while I'm doing that. So see how practical it is, but I think I'll be okay. I'm trying to just be productive today and get things done. And yeah, it's been a while since I've done a live feed, so live stream. So um, as always, if anyone has any questions, anything you'd like to talk about, please feel free to bring those things up. Been busy recently, obviously with the American election and other things. Got one person online at the moment. Okay, like I said, multitasking here. So if anyone asks questions, I'll respond to it. Yeah, like I say, just feel free to let me know you're there, comment, etc. So two people online now. Once again, folks, I'm multitasking here, so if you ask questions, I'm not going to have a running commentary about any particular subject, but ask questions, make comments, etc. That's the best way to keep this flowing, I reckon. Sticky surface. I'm trying to position this to. Pots and pans, never fun. Have to be done. Carl, are you loyal to any brand? Brand. Okay. By brand, I assume you mean clothes. Sorry about the noise, by the way. I'm just running the tap. By brand, I assume you mean clothes, that sort of thing. Not really. I always buy the same shampoo, Alberto Balsam. No hair at the moment, not much. But brand loyalty, not really. Not when it comes to clothes or much else. So I tend to go with what's practical. And yeah, Alberto Balsam with shampoo is probably the only brand loyalty I can think of. Apologies again for the noise. It should be just a few seconds. A lot to do here, so. See, I have two sinks in my house. And what about electronic companies? Again, not really. I used to buy the record label Head Candy. I'm raising my voice here because the tap is. Excuse me a second. Yeah, so electronic companies. I used to buy the record label Head Candy. They done some sort of dance, alternative, chill out, independent music. Some of it I wasn't so fussed on, but a lot of it I like, particularly their Winter Chill albums. And Head Candy's quite distinctive with the kind of sexy girls on the cover, not actual photographs, but kind of animated, kind of sexy, classy girls. That was kind of their thing. I do like Head Candy, particularly the Winter Chill labels. How about yourself, Carl? Do you have any brand loyalty or any electronic loyalties? I think a lot of people just go with what's practical. By the way, people, if you see me disappear, it's just to get tiles and that sort of thing. Not permanent. I've a lot to do here, so we'll be here for a while. See, I always wonder where to start with this. Don't particularly enjoy this, pots and pans. Not a lot of fun, but has to be done. Has to be done. So I try to avoid cooking with this sort of stuff most of the time. I own a bit of everything. Yeah, I'm the same, Carl. I have a bit of a mixture. To be honest, I have a lot of things. Things in general. I'm not wealthy, but I have a lot of books, a lot of music, a lot of DVDs. Kind of categorize my DVDs into genres like war films, mob films, westerns, historic epics. Um, yeah, so I categorize them that way. But I do intend to big tidy up, and periodically I'll put things into a charity shop. Uh, Cull a little bit. I think it's useful to do that. I don't have. I'm not a big guy on clothes. Like I'll just get what's comfortable. I don't really have a particular style. I guess it would be these kind of plain pullover type tops. I don't go for many brand labels particularly. Good evening, Declan. I have Blu-ray. No, I've got a DVD player, and it's okay for me right now. I guess Blu-ray probably is better. Is more pristine quality or something. But to be honest, as long as the DVD works, I'm okay with it for now. So much to do here. I'm trying to think where to start. So I've got 5 people online. Remember, people don't be shy to say hello. I can't really type because my hands are. Got to respond to comments. How you been? I've been quite good, Declan. Thank you. Had to fill in some stuff for the job centre today. They get a bit more meticulous in the requirements in terms of what you have to do online. So I've tried to, keep to that so that I don't get sanctioned. But you do get into a situation where you apply for job after job and it becomes a bit predictable. But otherwise, I'm quite good. I can't complain. I've had quite a productive day, and I'm okay. I watched Doctor No yesterday, the first James Bond film in honor of the late Sean Connery. I've got all the Bond films, and I've watched them all several times. So have you guys watched those early Bond movies? Goldfinger often gets touted as best. I think it's good, but I think it's slightly overrated, just insofar as maybe it's just but some of the other ones are underrated. I think You Only Live Twice is underrated. Um, have you heard of 4K? Sorry for my spelling. 4K refers to. Declan, that's good. Are they requiring you to job search despite lockdown? They are, and I kind of anticipated at some point we're going to get a bit more rigid about it. To be fair, though, my advisor is understanding. He knows the situation. He knows there's only so much you can do. Um, so I'm filling it in. I'm doing what they're asking me just so I don't get sanctioned. But I mean, for example, the 30 hours a week job search. Anyone who knows the Department of Work and Pensions, that's long been a requirement. And in my view, it's just absurd. Even in normal times, 30 hours is ridiculous. If you apply, for the sake of argument, for 20 jobs, that might take in total, I guess, 5 or 6 hours. And then there's maybe asking shops, updating your CV. There's only so much you can do, but 30 hours a week is preposterous. And I doubt anyone can commit to that. Um, but like I say, my advisor's all right. He's pretty understanding. So I'm just trying to make sure I've got something filled in on my journal so that I don't get sanctioned. How about you, Declan? You doing okay? By the way, Declan, thank you for alerting me to those videos that were muted. I don't know why that happens. I checked my settings. Just seems to periodically happen. I've just uploaded a video on my channel. That is the future of this channel, and where I want to go with it. And I forgot to mention the live streams and that, so I'll continue doing these. I like them. I think they're good because I can directly connect with you guys and yeah, just muse on my thoughts. And are you a fan of Doctor Who? That's an interesting question. Yes and no. No, insofar as I don't really follow the stories. I don't watch the episodes religiously, and certainly not the new era, so to speak. Since David Tennant onwards, I can't say that I've watched it enthusiastically. But I'm sufficiently interested to. I mean, I got a calendar of Doctor Who one year, and I remember as a kid, I remember those old the classic Doctor Who like Tom Baker, John Pertwee, that sort of era. I mean, before my time, but I remember that was always my image of Doctor Who. I like the creativity of it, I like different monsters and so on, and I love the opening theme tunes. Um, the other thing about Doctor Who is Sunderland has a connection with that because the actor who played one of the teachers, I get the guy's name now, but he was from Sunderland, so he was one of the first companions. I like the creativity of Doctor Who, and something I really enjoyed was the BBC production. It might have been ITV actually, An Adventure in Space and Time. It was a program about the making of Doctor Who. I wouldn't say I'm a huge fan, but I do recognise it's a big part of British culture, and I like the creativity of it. I like the TARDIS idea of the TARDIS. I like the idea of regeneration and all that sort of thing. I like the monsters, but I'm not so into it that I know all the stories and stuff. Um, I guess you're a fan, Carl. So, Carl, who's your favorite Doctor and why? Chris Bateman. I can't believe they're still sanctioning. Disgusting. Well, that's a warning to give. Like I say, in my case, the advisor is pretty easygoing. I'm not really worried about him. But I agree. I mean, I think common sense needs to apply. And obviously, in a lockdown that the government's imposed, they have to be understanding of the fact there's really are limits on what people can apply for. Because the only shops that are open are food shops. Um, and there might be some other essential services, but we are in a serious economic situation right now. So, I think sanctions should be an absolute last resort. Definitely, in the past, they've been badly applied when you get people who are critically ill being threatened with sanctions. I do think that's disgusting, but I think this year is somewhat different. Personally, to be honest, I'd signed on in May, and I kind of thought at some point it was going to go this way. So I'm just doing what I can to avoid that situation, and I'm relatively optimistic it won't happen. My next payday is the 21st payday. My next word installment of the universal credits the 21st. Trying to fill things in as much as possible up to that point. Declan, yeah, keep trying at supermarkets. Say hopefully you'll get something. It's all I can do, to be honest. Because that's all there really is at the moment. I don't drive, so that limits that. Um, Chris Bateman, Starmer needs to hold them to account over it. Absolutely. Um, I remember back in 2009, I went through workfare scheme, and that was under the Brown government. So Labour's own record isn't entirely squeaky clean on this. Um, so yeah, I like Starmer. Mostly, I get a good vibe up from him. There's a few things I don't like. I didn't like that he pandered to Black Lives Matter. I think that was a mistake. Do the whole kneeling thing. But I think he's a smart guy. I think he's capable, and I think he looks like a prime minister in waiting. But a parliamentary term is a long time in politics, so we'll see. I would say this though: I think the Corbynites need to consider: do they want a Labour government, or do they want to keep standing in Starmer's way? Some of the nonsense they come out with, like red Tories, it's just so tribal, and so we'll see what practical purpose it serves if they want a Labour government. Joshua Dente. Starmer had a bad PMQ session today, apparently. I must admit I didn't see it. I haven't watched PMQs for a long time. It's not since, to be honest, not really much this year. I'm going to have to watch that. What makes you say that, though, Joshua? Was it, do you think he had weak answers, or slow on his feet? What was it you thought that he was weak in? I mean, I guess the thing with PMQs, it's all down to optics. And both the Prime Minister's job and the Leader of the Opposition's job is difficult insofar as they both have a role. The Prime Minister has to be prepared to take the grilling, and the Leader of the Opposition has to be prepared to ask the relevant questions. Yeah, I agree with that, Declan. I'm not going to read out your whole quote. People could see it, but I mean, my younger sister has chronic illnesses, and I haven't sanctioned her, but I know of people in similar situations told to fit to work. There is a real callousness with the BWP. I must be honest, I haven't experienced it this year, but I'm always wary that that could happen. I don't want to be signing on when the lockdown ends, because I mean, when the virus comes to an end, because then I think I'll go back to all destroying meetings in the job centre, where if you're 10 seconds late, they'll sanction you. It's just this thing about, people with a little bit of power can impact others' lives. Like I say, there are people who really do abuse the system, and fair enough, hold them to account. But having draconian, what I dislike is when they give you, so all the correspondence is threatening, like failure to comply will result in sanctions. Like, we get the idea. But I have to say, my own experience this year has been okay, much better than I thought it would be in terms of the job centre. I was hugely relieved when he said there wasn't really an obligation to do the things I was doing previously. Joshua, I haven't watched it myself yet either. Just read some headlines. Even the Independent was giving him a hard time. Well, that's saying something. Um, yeah, I agree, Chris. The Independent can be a bit flippant. Yeah, I mean, they can be a bit, what's the word, inconsistent, if we put it that way. I don't know if you guys heard about the journalist Robert Fisk recently, or if you know much about him. I made a video on that, but unfortunately, it was one of the videos that was muted. So, if you don't know, Robert Fisk was a seasoned journalist. He wrote for the Independent and some other papers, but in the field, he was known for something called, which was allowing his own political ideology to take the story. The thing about Fisk, I'll just say this briefly before getting to the next questions. I think he was unquestionably brave. He faced, he was on frontline war zones, but I don't think he was always entirely reliable. Yeah, I think he allowed his politics to cloud his judgment sometimes, and that's not good for journalists. Okay, Joshua, thoughts on Christopher Hitchens? Very, very smart man. Um, I haven't watched as many Hitchens debates as I would like. I think he's a very smart guy. He could be a bit pompous at times, a bit arrogant, but clearly very intelligent. And one thing I always remember about Hitchens was his views on Islamophobia. That is to say, he took the position that it was a term coined by moral cards to try and silence debate on Islamic extremism, and I agree with that. I think that has very much been the case. One thing about Christopher Hitchens, the actor Roger Allam. If you Google Roger Allam, he was in the film Tamara Drew, among other things. It's uncanny how much he looks like Hitchens. Um, I remember when I watched Tamara Brewer, I was like, what's Hitch doing in this film? It's not. It's a guy called Roger Allam, so Google him. Um, have you seen new episodes of Spitting Image? I've seen some of them. I think they're pretty good. It's in keeping with their proud tradition of great British satire. Very good puppets. I remember there was a series called 2D TV, which was kind of in the similar vein, not as famous, but they had some good skits as well. I saw one on Xi Jinping. I hope that's not the only one. I hope they are merciless with Chinese Communist Party officials because in China it's impossible. So I was pleased when I saw that, the Xi Ping shuffle. I think it's quite good so far. Um, let's see. One thing about the new Spitting Image is the ridiculous claim that their portrayal of Kanye West was racist. The point is that it's a parody. It exaggerates all its characters. That's the idea. Okay, Studio something 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 Nintendo. Hey, I've been watching your videos since 2015. I find them to be quite calming and thought provoking. Hope you keep making them. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate that. It's always good to see positive feedback, so I really appreciate that. Declan, do you think Donald Trump could still be declared winner of election as he apparently could the Supreme Court situation? It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. What I find interesting is members of his own circle apparently had been pushing him to concede. Um, so it'd be interesting to see how that plays out. Okay, guys, I need to get something. I'm going to be 1 minute. Just hold by, don't go anywhere. Um, but yeah, that's a good question, Declan. I need to get something else. So just be 1 minute. Please don't go anywhere. So, how to get my trusty scrubber? Yeah, about that question, Declan. Um, it's going to be a turbulent few months, and if there's no normal transition process, I don't know how that's going to play out. The worst case scenario would be if it comes to the 20th of January and two men are claiming the presidency. These claims that the Republicans are making about fraud, I'm not saying there's no merit to them, but my question is if the Democrats want to commit high level fraud across the board, would they not, why would the Republicans be doing well in the Senate? If this was going to be a big, massive steal of the election, you'd think it would be across the board, but that hasn't been the case. I mean, the Republicans have won several states, quite a few states, so I'm somewhat wary of it, particularly since Trump was saying literally he was going to call it a fraud from the start. So I'm more tempted to say the man's just a sore loser. But like I say, if there is credible claims of fraud, that does need to be investigated. Um, but definitely it's going to be a turbulent few months. I mean, Mike Pompeo said he was confident to be a peaceful transition with Donald Trump getting a second term. Well, that shows you where things are. They're going to put up blocks to this. I mean, in 2000, there's often comparisons with that election. It ended up in a Supreme Court battle, but Bush being declared the winner. But both men were being responsible in the words. With this, I think Trump's fanning the flames. And I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Carl, have you watched film to TV shows from different countries? Absolutely. I've watched a lot of foreign films. The most recent foreign film I watched was actually the original Godzilla, Japan, 1954, and I was quite impressed. Given it was a low budget, given the time, it was quite atmospheric. It was quite well made, and I can see why it's acclaimed. I enjoyed it. But I've got many foreign films. I've got French films, Iranian films, Chinese films. So yes, I do like international cinema. It's there's a whole world out there to discover. So I do like international cinema. But probably most of my films are English language. I'd say I have about 1,000 DVDs. I'd say about maybe 40 or 50 of them are foreign films. A bit less, maybe. By the way, guys, I have a question. Just out of interest, when I post these live streams, how do you know? Does it come up in your notifications or something? I don't know how that works. I mean, how do you know how like to log in at this time? Is it like a notification or what? This is great. And if you're ever doing pans, I recommend something like this. Definitely makes it a lot easier. On my homepage, but it isn't always reliable. So I guess it just comes up like Centrist Philosopher has uploaded a live feed, I guess, something like that. That's good to know. Anyway, I do appreciate everyone logging in and listening to my voice for an hour, 50 minutes, whatever it is. Yeah, I'm trying to multitask here. Been doing that all day. Yeah, because I'm a subscriber. It popped up on my. Yeah, it's probably something to do with the subscription side of things. Carl, do you like any particular films from other countries? Is there any that you could cite? I mean, other languages? I really think this work would be impossible without this scrubber. Do you guys know a channel called Bedtime Stories by any chance? It's a British channel, but basically they take all sorts of interesting phenomenon, stories, urban legends, and they always have illustrations. I really like their channel, although I have to say recently they had one on the London Underground, Ghosts, which was very interesting, but it looked like they'd directly taken it from a documentary, or at least a lot of the dialogue, so that was interesting. But I'm just wondering if you know that channel. I think I made a video a while back on channels that I like. That's certainly one of them. There's another channel called Top Fives. Another British guy narrates that, and it's good, but sometimes the guy gets basic facts wrong and pronounces places in the wrong way. But otherwise, it's a good channel. I remember watching this film on YouTube about the downfall of Twitter. Downfall. So, do you mean as a company, or are you talking about aviation disaster? So I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. Do you mean as a company? I mean, the thing about YouTube is it's just endless. You could end up spending hours on it just with the amount of things that is online. Uh, Incredible. It's all over the place. So, have you guys seen any of the old Bond films? Like I mentioned, I watched Doctor No last night. By old, I mean, say, Timothy Dalton and before. I don't know what's happening with the cinema at the moment because there's a few things I want to see, but I really, really, really hope this pandemic doesn't ruin cinema as a medium. It'd be a tragedy. So, Carl, it's about The company. So what happened with Swiss Air? Was there a big scandal or anything like that? Yeah, well, I guess takeaway shops would be classed as an essential service though because they provide food, presumably for nurses or couriers or other people who might commute. Um, they're a necessity. Emergency services as well, I guess. The last film I watched, and I might actually make a video about it, was Gods and Generals. I've long had an interest in the American Civil War, and it's a 2003 film focusing on. It's based on a novel by Michael Shara, and it's a prequel to the 1993 film Gettysburg. So if you like kind of American history or that sort of thing, very interesting film. It's about the Battle of Fredericksburg and follows the perspective of both sides. And Gettysburg is a very, very underrated film. I'll probably make a review about that. If you know the actor Jeff Daniels of Dumb and Dumber fame, he couldn't have a more different role in these films. He plays Colonel Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain, who was a famous hero of the Union Army. And it's just such a contrast from what Jeff Daniels is often known for. That was the last film I watched. I've also watched clips of John Adams, which was a mini series on the second president, John Adams. It was because of Swiss Air 111, which crashed because of a cockpit fire and 9/11. I see. I know the shows Second from Disaster and Air Crash Investigation. They're very interesting. Covering, I think obviously Air Crash Investigation covers just air disasters, but Second from Disaster covers like the Piper Alpha oil rig disaster, the King's Crossfire, and other disasters. If you like time travel films, An Angel for May is recommended. An Angel for May, that sounds interesting. Tell me more, Chris. Who's in it? Any well-known people? Something called talking of time travel films. So something I'd really recommend is with the beautiful Jane Seymour and Christopher Reeve, Somewhere in Time. Beautiful film. Basically about a man from at that time, contemporary times, who goes back in time to meet a woman that he actually meets her when she's an old woman, and she says, "Come back to me." And it's a very very unique film, beautiful film. I don't want to say too much. Just check it out. But An Angel for May, I'll definitely need to check that one out. So it goes back about 60 years. Twopence to Cross the Mersey by Helen Forster. Um, I'm not familiar with that one, Declan, but it sounds like sort of sagas, period sagas seem to be very popular. Um, so I'll check that one out as well. I assume that's a period saga. I mean, ostensibly people might say they're designed for women, but I just like the history side of them. I'm crap at describing films. No worries. I sometimes stall myself when I'm trying to do a film review. I don't always get it quite right. But you know, could you say who's in the film, Chris? I mean, which actors? Spilled some suds onto the laptop. Things gonna need a clean. Laptops apparently gather lots of germs. Hands keep slipping. Off your beard. Beard. I must admit, I'm not familiar with him. I'll definitely check it out. Let's see. So, called An Angel for May. Definitely will check that out. Yeah, The Age of Adam. That's the film I was trying to remember. The only thing that I thought was a bit strange is when they showed the trailer, it stars the American actress Blake Lively. They showed the trailer and this cop stops her on the road and says, "Ma'am, according to this, you're meant to be 40 years old," as if that's old. And it was a bit of a strange take to make. I don't know if you see the trailer. It's a TV movie on Prime. Well, I don't do streaming services, so that's probably why it'd be probably difficult for me to access. I tend to prefer cinema or maybe I'll buy something on DVD if it's cheap. I have a friend who's been watching Peaky Blinders and he really talks a lot about that. I think I'd be interested in that, but the thing is, you'd have to watch it from the very start, I think, to grasp it. Have you seen Fred's though? Fred's, yes, if it's the same thing I'm thinking of, Fred's 1984, it's about the scenario of a nuclear holocaust in Britain. Yep. Yeah, I watched that very recently, actually, about a month ago. Less. Very dark film, very well made film. I mean, not just the attack itself, but the aftermath. It was chilling. I mean, very dystopian, very true Britain, almost looking like Holodomor era Ukraine. Really desperate starvation, people eating sheep and stuff. Very powerful film. There's an American film of a similar vein about a nuclear scenario. Of course, this was in mid 80s. That's right, the day after was the American one. I haven't seen that. Sometimes I think British films have a gritty realism that American films lack. I can't explain it. They just seem to. Maybe I'm biased, but seems to be a gritty realism there. And I thought the way that was made was very, very powerful. 1984 was just a year before I was born, so right at the end of the Cold War. People often remember the Cuban Missile Crisis, but actually, one of the most dangerous things in the Cold War was 1983, called Able Archer. Anyone who's interested in history of the Cold War may know this. It was a period of big nuclear standoff, and it was actually an interesting incident. I think it was 1983. There was a guy called Stanislav Petrov. He was a commander at a Russian nuclear station, and he basically had the final decision on whether to act or not on incoming missiles. What happened was they got these warnings of an incoming American missile, and they had to go through, I think it was 14 or 15 kind of check systems to make sure that it was authentic. It went through all of those, and this guy literally had a warning in big Russian letters saying incoming missile, and he had to make a decision to retaliate or not. He judged that it was a false alarm, and he called off any retaliatory strike, and it turned out it was nothing but sunbeams. So this guy, Stanislav Petrov, you can find videos about him online. He passed away a few years ago. Can actually be considered as the man who saved the world because had he made another decision, it would have been all-out nuclear war potentially. Of course, he got disowned by the Soviet Union because they he exposed their faulty system, but that really was incredible. Um, Chris Bateman, I was born in '81. Yeah, we're similar age. I'm a bit younger. I don't like how you need an account for everything these days. I agree, Carl. It's the right pain having to get passwords for every damn thing. And then that's what I hate with job sites. You're always going around in circles. And Indeed.com, they make you upload their version of a CV rather than just doing your own thing. Very irritating. Declan, yeah, Helen's book about her poverty-stricken childhood in during the Great Depression in Liverpool. Yeah, I might check that one out. I've got quite a lot of those sort of books actually. And they do vary in their quality, I think. Of course, where I live in the northeast of England is Catherine Cookson country, sort of down that tradition of saga type novels. So a lot of those writers were inspired by Catherine Cookson, who is one of the world's most prolific writers. We have a museum tour in South Shields, which I haven't been to for a few years. Um, have you guys read Angela's Ashes? Carl, have you seen Pulp Fiction? Yes, many times. It's classic Tarantino. I thought it was much better than Jackie Brown. I just couldn't get into Jackie Brown. Pulp Fiction, though, has memorable scenes. I think one thing about Tarantino's enduring popularity is he's old school. You know, he doesn't rely on special effects. He just relies on good acting, memorable dialogue. Very old school in that sense. I think he can be a little arrogant at times, a bit defensive in terms of the criticism, but yes, most directors are to some extent. But yeah, the soundtrack of Pulp Fiction, those opening credits are very memorable. One of the great movies of the 90s, no doubt about it. And it shows the versatility of Bruce Willis, actually, something I'd never considered before. If you look at his role in Death Becomes Her, he's kind of a nerdy figure. And yet in Pulp Fiction, he's this, tough boxer type character. One thing about Pulp Fiction, I don't know when it's meant to be set because there's certain retro feels about it. I mean, it looks like it should be the 60s or something. Not, I'm aware that the diner was like a recreation diner, but just the way that John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson dressed and the certain vibes, it felt like it meant to be almost like a 60s setting. And then the taxi and Butch, the boxer, all that sort of thing. So, um, what do you think, Carl? Do you think it's meant to be a period film or contemporary to 1994? Because I'm not quite sure. Well, Chris, I'd recommend it. It's a little bit confusing. You need to watch it a few times to really get your head around it, but definitely it's a film worth watching. It's memorable. Sure. I mean, there's some Tarantino films I think like Jackie Brown to me was sort of just a standard drug movie. Pulp Fiction definitely stands out. There's certain bits about it that I don't want to give too much away, but just some of the scenes are very memorable. The dialogue, the soundtrack. A lovely greasy pan here. I have to clear some space. Other Tarantino films I've seen include Django Unchained. Hope you guys can hear me okay. Django Unchained, um, Once Upon a Time in America. Sure, there's others. Those come to mind. Have you guys seen Django Unchained? Brimstone and Treacle, starring Sting. Brimstone and Treacle. I didn't know Sting done acting. Brimstone and Treacle? I'll need to Google that, find out what it's about. Sounds like an intriguing title. What's the worst computer or laptop I own? That's a good question. Well, I'll just say this. If you ever have problems with your laptop, do not use. There's a service via Curry's PC World. That's kind of an internal service. They're absolutely disastrous. Um, I forget the name now off the top of my head, but it's an internal service. And with this laptop, I got this in October last year. I was having problems with the screen freezing and so on. I brought it back. And because it was just outside the month's, I don't know, warranty or whatever, they charged me. But I discovered what they'd done they could have just told me about. So the cheeky buggers charged me for something I could easily have done. And I can't remember off the top of my head. But I've had a lot of stress with computers over the years. I've had a laptop. I've had a few stressful things. When I was in China, I spilled green tea on one laptop, so that was a disaster. because it could be fixed, but then all the settings would be in Chinese. So I had no choice but to just get a new one when I got back to the UK. Um, this one's been okay recently, but my last laptop kept restarting and restarting and restarting. I've forgotten, in fact, just how stressful that was. Like literally about 20 times a day. It was a nightmare. This one doesn't do that. So maybe in that sense, this has been my best. But I've definitely had my share of stress with laptops. That's for sure. And the thing about it is you feel totally powerless, like you versus a machine. I'm not technophobe exactly, but most annoying thing is when you're trying to get help and it's some flipping computer generated voice. Please tell me your problem. Is it A, B, or C? Rather than just having a human to talk to you and work through it. Very, very frustrating. Um, 10 years, that's a pretty good run for a laptop. Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, I haven't seen that one yet. He's in Quadrophenia, I haven't seen that either. What about Predator? Have you seen that or Robocop? I don't know if I've seen the original. I haven't seen Predator for sure, but I think you mean Predator, but I haven't seen it anyway. RoboCop, I haven't seen the original, but I've seen the remake of 2014. Pretty good. Um, when I was younger, I wasn't into those sort of dystopian films, but now I'm more flexible in my tastes. Use your tablet mostly. I wouldn't be raging if I had a laptop that could. Yeah, I would be. Yeah, it's immensely frustrating. And then feel powerless because I had to walk all the way to. I don't drive, so I had to walk there. It was a good half an hour walk. And just the whole attitude was, oh well, to be. What really angered me was they took this attitude. Oh well, it's a cheap model. It's not that reliable. My thought was, well, it's a new product that you people have sold me. It was just I had a very bad cowboy attitude. And the company I mentioned, or the I really wish I could remember it because if you look at the Facebook page, they had 99% negative feedback. Just people saying they were taking the piss, they weren't listening to complaints, they weren't turning up when they said they would. It was just a disaster. And I think I'm a strong believer in consumer rights. I think big companies, it can be a David and Goliath situation sometimes for consumers. It can feel that way. It can be immensely frustrating. Um, because you're in this position where you're trying to get something done and then just feel like you're going in circles. And especially when you rely on a computer, it's immensely frustrating. I was supposed to have disruption over the last 2 days because it got notice through the door saying there was going to Network Rail was going to make uh, do some work nearby, but thankfully that hasn't really transpired. Yeah, I thought so as well, Declan, but in this case, apparently it was just a month. I didn't realize. Bit of a joke. But even if the warranty had expired, their whole attitude was just dismissive and like kind of, oh well, it's a cheaper model, so what are you complaining about? I'm complaining because it's a new product you guys have sold. I mean, they didn't say that, but that was their attitude. Um, Tomo, hey Nathan, oh no, what's happened? Oh no, nothing's happened, Tomo. I'm just responding to a question earlier in the thread, but my computer's fine. Thanks for asking. Welcome to the thread. It's just a response to an earlier question in the thread about reliability of technology. Yeah, sometimes more often than not, originals are better. It can seem a bit lazy for constant remakes to be done. I mean, this year, my goodness, we've had The Secret Garden, The Witches, and there's a range of other remakes being done. It can just seem a bit lazy sometimes. Having said that, I don't think all remakes are bad. Just varies. I'm not really opposed to the principle of a remake, as long as there's a significant gap between them and there's maybe a slightly different angle on it. Almost on this mundane task. What year was the original RoboCop? I guess it would have been eight. And as I understand it, it's about a police officer who gets line of duty and he gets involved in some program where he becomes a kind of like they use AI technology or something to make him a super cop. Is that the general idea? Yeah. Cheers, Tomu. Everything's okay. Might run this up. So six people online. If anyone wants to ask me anything, feel free. Like I say, that's always the way to keep the flow going. Apologies if this video has been noisy. That's the general idea. Yeah, I sort of had some idea about it, but I wasn't sure. Okay, guys, I'm going to round this up soon because I do have other things to do. Any last questions before I round this up? Because I'm getting quite hungry. I actually need to get dinner. Okay, well, if that's everything, I'm going to round this up, guys. So thanks a lot for your time, and like I said, I'm going to continue with these sort of videos. Well, just address uh, these two last questions. Tomu, what are your thoughts on Corbyn being sacked from the Labour Party? That might take a whole video actually. My understanding is it was his response. That is to say, he wouldn't take any personal responsibility. He decried anti-Semitism, but he wouldn't take any responsibility himself in terms of it being on his watch. My take with Jeremy Corbyn is I don't know what's going on within Labour ranks. I do trust that there's been evidence presented as to the anti-Semitism. Um, but I think there's a lot of other reasons that makes Corbyn a potentially dangerous character. I'm not a Corbyn fan. I think some of his far left positions are very contentious, and I don't think that someone who advocated the Russian position literally basically parroted RT's narrative after the Salisbury attack. Someone who calls terrorist organisations our friends, I don't think it's fit to be Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. So I'm a big critic of Corbyn. But I imagine it will cause a big schism within Labour. The Corbynites will be out for revenge, no doubt. Um, what annoys me about Corbyn supporters is pretty much like Trump supporters. They're incapable of objective thinking. If anyone here supports Corbyn, I'm not saying it's like every single Corbyn supporter, but there is a dogmatic sort of entrenched idea that someone criticises Corbyn, they must therefore be a Tory in disguise. It's a very short-sighted way of thinking, and I don't understand why Corbyn supporters, for all they pontificate about the Tories, they seem to want to be in opposition. I mean, they're putting up barriers to Starmer when he could well be the next prime minister. Have a St. Peep show. When our next planning live, I honestly, Declan, I don't know. I do this very spontaneously. That's a truthful answer. I really don't know. What am I planning on eating? I have no idea. I was going to have a pizza, but I don't think I've got a pizza down there. Um, yeah, I agree with that, Tomu. Trump and Corbyn fans preach to the choir. Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of similarities. They both talk about the New World Order, globalists, etc. There is actually a lot they have in common. Um, and I'm pleased, frankly, that both are being consigned to history. Okay, guys, and we're going to go now. I don't know when the next live stream will be. I'll try to do this periodically. Thanks a lot for your support, and I'm going to round this up. Have a good evening, everyone.